Meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll get a roll call, please. Move on to citizen comments. You have 5 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address for the record.
Members of the County Board, here we are again in budget time, and I'm here this evening to really urge your support as we go forward with this year's budget. I think it will afford us an opportunity to do some of the things that we need to do in our community with respect to mental health and substance abuse. This is truly a key issue in our community as in any other communities. And I think it's up to us here in our community to do what we can do. And I think we're looking at a study that was done now nearly a year ago, looking at the access to mental health treatment in Kenosha County. And I think there are items on the budget that will allow us to meet some of these markers. And I think it's extremely important as we go forward. I solicit your support, and I thank you for your years of support as we try to improve the quality and the access to mental health in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Any other citizen comments? Please state your name and address for the record.
Joe Clark, 4862 105th Place, Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I've been just kind of watching the county board a little bit and reading the paper, and I just wanted to shed a little insight on what I'm seeing in the budget and some of the things I've been watching. First of all, our budget, the county budget, is very much different than a municipal budget. If municipal expenses are going up by 3%, your levy is going up by 3%. The biggest shock for me, or the biggest learning thing for me when I came to the county board back in 2002 was, and I'm going to use 2016 numbers, one comment: the 2017 proposed budget was not on the website, so I wasn't afforded the ability to see that. I think it'd be a good thing for it to be out there. But anyways, I think last year we had 216 million in expenditures, and if you followed a CPI lift of 1.7%, the budget would have to go up, or the levy would have to go up 3.7 million just to make that happen. We have levy constraints. We have county board levy resolutions that say we want to hold it to a certain level. And if we had a 2.75, I think you guys are at 2.87. But if it was 2.75, that's a $1.7 million levy increase. So always from day one, coming out of the gate when you start the year, we were always looking for a $2 to $3 million cut just to have a levy come in at 2.5%, 3%. So that's a challenge. It's very much unlike a municipality, and you need to remember that. And we've always, ever since I was on the board and thereafter, it's always been that way. Secondly, new growth. The county is experiencing a tremendous amount of growth. And I think there should be a benefit to that where our taxes really aren't going up. But I thought I saw the number was 8% for 2016, the equalized value increase. If our levy is to go up by 2.87%, and we have new growth of 8%, the taxpayers are going to receive a lower tax bill. And everybody needs to remember that. So I sit here and I read about the mental health issues, the incarceration costs. You see employees being paid more money. All those things, cost of health insurance, cost of everything is going up. And you have to cut just to get to that number, and I know that. So coming in at 2.87%, my tax bill is going to go down. I didn't look specifically at my tax bills, but the last couple of years, I've seen the county, I've seen it drop, or I've seen it go up maybe 1%. As a taxpayer, I understand it costs money. As a business owner, I expect that my costs are going up. I have employees and all those things, that's going to happen. So the reserves, I read a comment in the paper about reserves and how we've taxed the taxpayers too much. And that may be true, but when you've budgeted, you may have come in, and we have experienced, and the county has experienced success, and they've come in under budget and all those things. I would just say, we've had this discussion many years ago when we had positive reserves. And the point is, if you were to say, let's give the taxpayers a freeze and use our reserves this year, you've got to make that levy increase up next year, because all those costs are here. So rather than having a 0% this year, you're going to have to double up on your levy next year, because those expenses are going to increase. What we did is we may have bonded less. If you want to return money back to the taxpayers, maybe you pay for your capital expenditures, or you borrow less by using cash. Just a thought, that's kind of what we did. You go back and look at some of those budgets, and you'll see the borrowing was very low. Kemper Center, finally. We had that discussion. You sit back and you watch long enough, the same issues keep coming up year after year. It's probably been 10 years, maybe longer. But what we found is the money that we gave the Kemper Center was probably the best money we spent and the most economic for running a county park. We have a building there that we have to maintain. And the conclusion we came when I was on the board was that that was money well spent. They were managing it with volunteers, and they were also raising money from the outside to do that. So we have a responsibility to that Kemper Center building. If they're not there, we have a much bigger cost. I appreciate all the work you guys do. I know you guys are all for Kenosha first, even though you have differences and you think you have different ways to go. I know your job isn't easy, but I can tell you when I drive on a county road, I know it's a county road, because I think you guys do a great job. I see our buildings, I see our roads. You're doing a great job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Any other citizen comments? Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Gary Granke, 526 74th Street, Kenosha. I am the chairman of Kemper Center. First of all, I want to thank everybody for everything that you do for Kemper, for all of your support for these last 40 years. This year marked the 40th anniversary of this great partnership. It was 40 years ago this year, Penny Ann Roth, alum of Kemper Hall, saw what was happening to her, the school that she went to. It was about to be torn down. Her, along with a group of citizens, raised the funds to buy the property known as Kemper Hall. She then decided, it will be 40 years next year, donate the property to Kenosha County, with the stipulation that it becomes a Kenosha County park and it is managed by Kemper Center, Inc. So next year will mark that 40th anniversary of the partnership between the county and Kemper. Since then, we have opened up the only arts center Kenosha County has, the Anderson Arts Center. Janet Anderson deeded her property to Kemper Center, to Kemper property, as long as it became part of Kemper Center, Inc. After much debate, the Kemper board decided to make it an arts center. It's been the Anderson Arts Center now for about 25 years. It is the only open to the public arts center in Kenosha County. The historic Durkee Mansion, the premier historic site in Kenosha County, is on the Kemper grounds. We have weddings, we have soccer games, we have Oktoberfest, we're about to have Christmas at Kemper. We have many fundraising activities at Kemper, and they grow every single year. We encourage every board member to come down and experience what's going on at Kemper. The one thing, though, we are hearing about our lines of communication. A lot of you are new board members here. In 1996, John Collins suggested to the Kemper board that we create a permanent seat on the Kemper Center board for a county board supervisor. We did that. Dick Lindgren was that first person. Great board member. Ron Frederick is now our representative on the Kemper board. He attends every Kemper board meeting. He gets all the packages. He gets all the pricing, all the budgets, all the financials. He is our line of communication right now with you. We go through him. Now, if anybody would want to suggest something different, if you want more of that information, we're open to that. But right now, Ron's doing a great job. He attends all of our meetings. One of the things that we are always encouraging, and I say this all the time, I wish we could set up a schedule that every committee of the county board, at least once a year, has their meeting at Kemper Center. That way you'll see firsthand what's going on down there. We can present to you what's going on. We can bring you up to date. We can hand out whatever you want to see. You can tour the grounds. I think it'd be a great way to do it. And maybe alternate. Every year, maybe the main campus, the following year, do it at the Anderson Arts Center. Alternate. I think it'd be a great way to do it. I think this private-public relationship we have, keeping in mind, Kemper Center is a private 501c3. We are not public. We are private. We are a private, nonprofit business operating at Kemper Center, Inc. It brings a lot of quality of life to people. And we're always trying to figure out ways how we can get new people to Kemper for new activities, from our jazz concerts to our biggest fundraiser is going to start in a couple weeks, Christmas at Kemper. If you've never been there, I highly recommend you try it. But the one thing we are going to do this next year, if we can't bring physically Kemper to the west end of the county, we're going to bring one of the concerts at the Anderson Arts Center. In fact, I'm going to meet with Matt, the Parks Director, and find a location on the west end of the county to where we can have a concert out there for the Anderson Arts Center, bringing that concept to the west end. So the people of the west end of the county can also appreciate everything we put on down at Kemper. The one thing Kemper Center, though, needs is fixed income. Majority of our income right now is variable. Now, what do I mean by that? It means by whether it's weddings or fundraisers or luncheons or Christmas parties, whatever. That number can change every single year, regardless of weather. We had 2 fundraisers this year, our car show and Oktoberfest. It rained both those days. We need fixed income. And that's the one thing the Kemper Board is working on the hardest right now, that we have guaranteed income every single month from an avenue that we can depend on. We are working very hard at Kemper, and we truly thank everything that you do for us. I greatly appreciate this partnership. Everybody at the Kemper Board appreciates it, and I think it's a great partnership that I think everybody can be proud of in southeastern Wisconsin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grunke.
Lois Bruno, 4995 89th Place. I was employed at Kemper Center last year for 10 weeks. I related this story to you last May. Prior to that appearance here for the county board, I spoke to you, Ms. Brunig, twice actually, and sent you my statement and received a promise that action would be taken. None was. I had a conversation with Mr. Esposito, and again, it ended with nothing. I was then told that the Finance Committee's audio was online, so I listened to it, only to hear that myself and the Flynn's were screamers and had not provided information, which I had provided. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, which has led me to really not have any faith or trust in the county board or our government, our local government. There's a lot of questions about Kemper Center that have been asked since 1981. I've done some research. There's a lot of archival things over at Parkside and online, and some of the same questions are being asked. And what I found even more interesting is that some of the same people are involved in the Kemper Center and still have not answered these questions, with some of our county tax dollars going at $100,000 a year to an organization. And again, I want to confirm that I was fired from Kemper Center, because I did file for unemployment and I got unemployment. And so if I had quit, as Mr. Esposito asserted in our phone call, that would make me guilty of fraud, would it not? That's a question. In 1994, in July, a letter to the editor, personnel who were hired who had no degrees, training, ability, or experience in restoration. Tragically, individuals with the needed training were weeded out, fired, insulted. Why? Another letter. What has become of all the donations? Why is membership allowed to disintegrate? Who's been overseeing the budget expenditures and audit process? One of the things that we have discovered is that the reported expense for the utilities for Kemper Center was $90,000, but it's a matter of public records that was actually $40,000. So another question. In the same letter, we've had businessmen who've been operating this facility and they've not been able to show a profit. Why? Another letter to the editor in February of 2000. For years, I have read the articles chronicling the unending problems at Kemper Center. Kemper Center, Inc. has hired and fired enough people who they put in charge that there are enough people to form a club. This history alone suggests incompetence on the part of Kemper, Inc. Reportedly, many of Kemper's problems could be solved if more money were available. If so, why does Kemper continue to turn down money? That's referencing some donations that were made that they wanted to name and they were rejected. Are people fired from Kemper because they developed viable action plans to make Kemper successful? The group Kemper Center, Inc. leases the property from the county, but they both have a responsibility to uphold the conditions of this lease. Don't you wonder why the group Kemper Center, Inc. hangs in there in spite of little progress and a lot of negative publicity? The record stinks. This group has had more than enough time to make it successful. The time for accountability is long overdue. The county should respect the taxpayers' investment and turn Kemper over to another group now. If not, why not? Again, this was written 17 years ago. From June 1994, Kemper Center and the county board have failed the taxpayers by not properly meeting the goals of preserving and promoting Kemper's potential. Of course, the solution will be more excuses and more money. In 2013, the headlines read, Kemper's officials argue for more funds. From everything I've read, this was not intended to be a long-term arrangement. I understand the lease, but the $100,000 that we're up to, it was $60,000 for a while, and now we're $100,000, and that's not in the lease. This is something that's approved by the county board every year. And yet I heard in the finance committee where you met with Sheriff Beth, and he was having to justify 75 hours of overtime paid to outside sheriff's departments that came and aided us when we were having more than one situation, and we couldn't handle it with just the people that we have in Kenosha County. And he said it would be great to have 2 more deputies. But yet we're funneling $100,000 to what I disagree. I think it is considered a public charity according to GuideStar. And we don't have a fundraising effort going there. We're having events and hoping to make a profit. And we are giving this money to someone who would look at a young girl and say to me that she deserved to be humiliated. That was Mr. Gronke. And so that's why I got fired, for standing up for that girl. And I think it's wrong that we're sitting here and expecting that this is all still okay. It's not okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bruno. Any other citizen comments? Citizen comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close citizen comments. We'll move on to announcements. want to remind everyone that tomorrow night does start at 7 p.m., and then we will debate the budget at that time. We have two of our youth and governance, Mikhail Miles from PDAC and Sydney Robson from Judiciary and Law here tonight. County Clerk.
Presentation of the Kenosha County 2017 budget by Supervisor Rose.
Supervisor Rose.
All right, thank you, Chair and board members. I would like to touch on and give you just a summary of the 2017 budget, which we will debate tomorrow night. This budget was debated, I believe, thoroughly. Recommendations were received from the various committees, and the various department heads were heard. And following that, the board, after considerable discussion, did endorse unanimously the budget presented. That budget is some $869,000. This is the general purpose levy budget. This is not all of the money that the county spends. A good deal of our money comes from the federal government or the state government, as you know. But this is the amount that the taxpayers will pay, and the 2017 levy increase is some 2.87% over last year. If you compare that or take a look at what a person with a $100,000 home would pay, it's approximately $3.94 more in 2017 than 2016. That's also within our parameters of our budget resolution that we adopted and recommended to the county executive. Where are some of the increases? First, look at human services. Their budget increased some $14.8 million. This is the largest department in terms of operating expenditures, which will spend some $85.3 million, or 42% of the total county operating budget. However, their levy is approximately 18% of that budget. Debt service saw the largest decrease in expenditures. It was down $321,000 due to resizing of some of the bonds, bid premium credits, and the use of debt service reserves. I'm not talking about our general reserves, which we often refer to. These are the debt service reserves. So again, debt service decrease, $321,000. What are some of the major levy impacts that you will see in the 2017 budget? First, personnel costs increasing $2.6 million. What is that attributable to? Well, first, $764,062 is for general wage increases. Second, new employees that are in the budget. And third, implementation of the classification and compensation study for nurses, social workers, custodians, cooks, and various other positions. And that all amounts to some $2.6 million for the 2017 county levy. Health insurance has increased $1,417,000 due to an 8% budget rate increase, and this is attributable to some new employees or employees who are currently employed who have some sort of change in status in their own lives. And then there have been some extraordinary costs that we have found in 2016, which at least we hope are non-recurring costs, but they're things like serious illnesses that do occur. You can't necessarily plan for those, but you have to respond to them. So what, again, we are anticipating $1,417,000
health insurance increase, and this is due to an 8% budget rate increase, and these are some of the reasons for it. There is $248,639 increase in retirement expenses, largely due to increases in salaries and contribution rates. Law enforcement, as most of you probably know, consumes the largest part of the county levy, some $36.5 million, or 45.8%. Their budget is largely funded through local county levy. Part of the revenue is achieved through our federal inmate program, where we house people who are detained by the Immigration Service, and also United States Marshal's Office. Those people are waiting trial in federal court. We have budgeted 199 people per day, which is the same in 2017 as 2016. This is, educated guesswork. One might argue that we should be at a higher figure. You could say 220 or 225. But again, this is largely guesswork. We've held at the 199 level for the past 2 or 3 years. I would say it's a conservative estimate. It is very possible that that could be higher, but keep in mind that if it is higher and we don't make that, then we're going to have a revenue hole that we're going to have to fill. On the other hand, if it exceeds that 199 estimate, we have a surplus there that would probably either go into the general fund or go to defer some other expenses that might be unanticipated in 2017. Which leads me to point out that the sheriff's inmate medical dental expenses has increased $295,051. This is one of those kinds of increases that one doesn't know from year to year. This again is an educated guess based upon patterns and experience of the Sheriff's Department. If there's some more serious illnesses, that's where that extra revenue might be used for federal inmates if we exceed that 199 people that we are holding per day. So, but anyway, we have projected $295,051 increase for medical and dental expenses. The Sheriff's Department and the County Administration attempt to collect if there is insurance involved, but very few of those people who are held do have health insurance. But that definitely is something that is looked at. Supplies have decreased in the Sheriff's Department, $233,796, largely due to the cost of gas and oil, which has, as you know, decreased. In the area of highway maintenance, the state has asked the Public Works Department to do additional state highway maintenance, which will increase revenues, net revenues of some $207,000. In other words, you might, if you were in a business, say, well, we're going to make a profit there of $207,000 after the various expenses. The supplies and salaries of some additional supplies and people to respond to the request from the state are going to be covered by the state, and over and above that, I say it's anticipated $207,000 net increase in revenues. Sales tax is going up, another revenue increase. We are anticipating some over $13.6 million received in sales tax revenue in 2017. That's budgeted $925,000 over the figure that we budgeted in 2016. Again, these are educated guesses based upon experience, but the administration believes that we will be at $925,000 more. That's due to products that you might buy at retail. It has a lot to do with the construction of various buildings residences in the community, development in Kenosha County. All those things contribute to the sales tax revenue increase of $925,000, or again, a total of $13.6 million anticipated. In the area of information technology, we anticipate data processing telecommunication expense increased by $109,000 net of associated fees collected. Brookside will deliver this year $500,000 reduction of county levy. You know, there was a time the county board would listen to a report from Brookside, and it was a deficit. The taxpayer was subsidizing that. Many supervisors and finance committee objected to that, and the charge was to the administrator there that we certainly wanted to break even. We would prefer a profit here, but we certainly didn't want a loss. And there have been deficits for years. They have been delivering. And this year it's $500,000 reduction on county levy at Brookside, and very commendable. They heard the message that we were delivering. Aging and Disability Services shows a $429,000 increase due to additional psychiatric expenses and increase for placement at institutions such as Mendota, such as in the past St. Luke's. Hopefully we're attempting to address that, and with the creation of that other facility in Kenosha. We've talked about more mental health demand, and so $429,000 increase will be seen in the budget. Medical examiners' fees are increasing $88,000 due to state mandates. The state has said, well, medical examiner fees got to go up, or should go up. So we will be paying the Milwaukee County Medical Examiner for autopsies in addition, pursuant to this state mandate of some additional $88,000. Treasurer anticipates budget decreases in interest and penalty fees on taxes of some $200,000. Well, if you look at it another way, that's positive, because your local residents are paying their real estate taxes on time. They're not letting their taxes go by, so we're not going to be collecting interest and penalties on their delinquent payments. So I would look upon that decrease as positive. It's an affirmation of the economy getting better. In the circuit court budget, there's a $129,000 increase for professional services and doctor fees. Again, this is for a number of reasons. There are more examinations ordered by the courts for mental health, being in a criminal case or civil setting. There are more people who are in need of interpreters. One of the interpreters is full-time, dealing with Hispanics who don't speak sufficient English to understand. It's required that they do and should be, and so therefore we have in criminal cases a interpreter that we have to fund. In civil cases, the individual has to bring their own interpreter and pay that bill. The budget meets the state levy requirements. In terms of equalized value, and Mr. Clark mentioned this, equalized value has increased $535 million in 2017. This is an increase over last year of 4.4%. Very positive. Of that, growth for new construction is $256 million. Another part of it is just general increase in what your home might be worth, or your commercial building might be worth more this year and last year. But new construction, $256 million. So we have an equalized value net of new construction increase of $279 million, or 2.3% for 2017. Where are the major improvements, capital improvements in the budget? And I'll try to highlight a few of those. The Kenosha County Center is recommended for a new roof replacement at $550,000. We have a plan to renovate 2 courtrooms a year starting in 2017. We budgeted $450,000 for that. For the sheriff's vehicle fleet, anticipating the purchase of 15 automobiles, or 1/3 of the fleet, $478,000. Additionally, we have budgeted capital $3.3 million of information technology projects, of which $1.4 million, or 41% of the total project expense, is for the replacement of the county's enterprise resource planning software. What's that? Well, that's the finance department software for things like purchasing, budget preparation, payroll. Those are very basics. Why do we need it? The current enterprise system is 20-plus years old, so this was the time for replacement. Additionally, there are capital improvements in county and detention center security cameras, courthouse, detention center, social services, additional security cameras, expansion of the security cameras in the pretrial areas. Public Works IT projects saw the largest year-over-year increase of $252,000. 42% of that is for laptops tied in with software that operates the electricity and the heating, air conditioning systems. If you're interested in roads, Highway Department, $6.5 million capital projects. We repave 15.5 miles per year. There was a time that was a greater number at 18 miles. But over the years, that's been reduced. We anticipate 15.5 miles being repaved, and we've been doing that consistently. And we have a plan every year to repave. And I think if you drive down the city roadways, you'll see the benefit of every single year having repaving, so we don't get into that type of situation that the city of Kenosha has seen for at least the last 8 years. Additionally, under the highway budget, there's $756,000 for equipment replacement, $8.8 million of transportation infrastructure projects, and this includes Highway 142. And I think it's well to remember when you're talking about these kinds of improvements, this is money largely that's going to stay in the community, money that's circulating in the community. And I think that's very positive. In the law enforcement budget, there's some capital improvements, $5.2 million of bonding for law enforcement enhancement projects. What are those projects? The medical examiner is moving into the public safety building from the hospital. They will be located on the 2nd floor. The evidence room, joint services, is going to be on the 2nd floor. It needs a larger space, it needs better organization, and so this is going to be taken care of. Shooting range is going to be developed. The medical examiner's office is going to be located where that current garage is in the public safety building. You probably noticed all of those garage doors at one end, the north end, I think it is, or perhaps the south end of the building. That's where the medical examiner will have their vehicles bring in bodies. And that garage is going to be located in one of the buildings nearby, in which the county recently purchased. They call it the Badger Building. If you recall, that was a building that was purchased. That will be the new location for the vehicle repairs and work that is done on various city and county vehicles, police and sheriff. So those are some of the things that are going to be done under the category of law enforcement. I think one of the most important parts of the budget is the budget resolution. That's the policy statement that we make about the direction that we want to see the budget go in the forthcoming year. Some of the things that you'll see in the policy resolution, and some of the things are there every year. They're routine, but some of the highlights are these. We are authorizing final recommendations of a classification and compensation study for social workers, custodians, nurses, cooks, and a few other various positions. We've done that, as we've talked about before. Those plans were presented, we debated them. This is the final step. There's a provision in the budget allowing the county to purchase and remodel buildings for the Civic Center expansion project, authorizing surplus funds for capital projects for purposes up to $500,000 per year. What does that mean? We're saying to the administration, if there's some leftover money from bonding that we haven't used, we would use that on some other Civic Center project. What's the alternative? Well, you can't refund that to the taxpayer without at least putting yourself in jeopardy for an income tax. Those are the income tax rules. So what are we going to do with it? We're going to, if there's anything extra, consider purchasing other or remodeling something else that is necessary in the Civic Center expansion project. At least we're giving authorization for the administration to do that. If the board didn't like it, of course, you could revoke that in the 2017. There's no plans to do anything now. I can't suggest that there's something on the back burner that we've left out, but that is the authorization in the budget resolution. For the Kenosha Area Business Alliance, there is $250,000 for the High Impact Fund. And we have $150,000 for CABA operations. The operations is an increase. But I think that CABA has done an outstanding job of working with the development of Kenosha County. We've seen more expansion here in the last, say, 15 years than perhaps we've seen in the prior 50 years. So I think the $250,000 for a high impact fund, $150,000 for operation is money well spent. Where you will see in the budget a few changes and ordinances related to clean air. I would just direct your attention to that. You can take a look at that yourself. There's authorization for leasing of a portion of a park such as Petrified Springs for a vendor permit agreement, so that we perhaps have some vendor operating, let's say, food and beverage inside a park. Again, nothing here to present, but there's been some discussion of it. This is authorization of it. And since there's no fishing pier at Kemper any longer, that was removed. There is some change in ordinances regarding the fishing and park hours, which merely is an update consistent with no fishing pier any longer. The budget resolution also provides authorization for some additional highway staffing to meet the projected demands funded by state revenue. If there's no state revenue, those employees will go away. But again, we're responding to the request from the state, and this is staffing that we're not going to pay for this. This will be all revenue, and as I said before, it's anticipated that there will be a net revenue benefit to us of some $207,000. In addition, there is authorization for the county executive to respond and purchase or acquire on behalf of Kenosha County any additional floodplain parcels And if they do, this is over at the Fox River Park, you know, that area that is continuously flooded, where there are still people living there, and over the years, we've purchased many of those properties, much of it through various state funding sources, which we're told has been largely drying up. But we are bonding at $50,000 for possible additional acquisition there. You'll notice some changes in the policy and procedure manual. You can take a look at those yourself. Finance Committee reviewed this for a period of 4 years. It was debated. I say it was supported 7 to nothing. And there are some replacement pages on your desk, these blue sheets. And if you want to leave your book here, the staff will make sure that the pages are replaced with up-to-date pages in the budget book. I'll ask for your support tomorrow night. This hits the highlights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Can I have a motion to adjourn? I have a first by Supervisor Dodge and a second by Supervisor Wamble. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Yep. We'll go ahead and call the next meeting to order. We do need a roll call again. We'll move on to citizen comments. Are there any citizen comments? Citizen comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close citizen comments and move on to announcements. Already covered those. Supervisor reports. Seeing no supervisor reports, we'll go ahead and move on.
New business, Resolution 60 from the Planning Development Extension Education Committee, a resolution request to approve the appointment of Ron Schilt to serve on the Southeastern Wisconsin Fox River Commission. Decker, yes. Poole, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Gilmore, yes. Bostrom, yes.
Supervisor Decker.
Move Resolution 60.
I have a first by Supervisor Decker and a second by Supervisor Poole. Supervisor Decker.
Resolution 60 would appoint Ronald Schilt to the Southeastern Wisconsin Fox River Commission. Mr. Schilt will serve until December 31st, 2018, or until a successor is appointed by the county executive and confirmed by the Kenosha County Board of Supervisors. Mr. Schilt will be filling a vacancy on the commission and will serve without pay. The Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee reviewed the appointment at the meeting prior to this meeting and recommends the approval.
Thank you. Seeing no lights, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Approval of the October 18th, 2016 minutes by Supervisor Hallman.
Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Motion to approve the minutes of October 18th, 2016.
I have a first by Supervisor Hallman and a second by Supervisor Blau. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Do I have a motion to adjourn Sendai, please? I have a first by Vice Chair Esposito and a second by Supervisor Bostrom. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned Sendai. Next. We'll go ahead and start the next meeting. Oh.
Just load the agenda.
Roll call, please. Are there any citizen comments? Citizen comments? Citizen comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close citizen comments and move on to announcements. I have none.
County Executive appointments, 20, Steve Bostrom to serve on the Kenosha County Housing Authority Board.
Refer to Planning Development Extension Education Committee.
21, Mary Shook Krebs to serve on the Kenosha County Housing Authority Board.
Refer to Planning, Development, Extension, Education Committee.
Policy resolution, first reading to required from the Finance and Administration Committee, a policy resolution 2017 Kenosha County budget.
Supervisor Rose.
I would move the Finance Committee's recommended budget to you for 2017.
I have a first by Supervisor Rose and a second by Supervisor Ron Frederick. Supervisor Rose.
It's first reading now.
Oh, sorry.
It's first reading. Communications from the City Clerk Deborah Salas regarding an amendment to the official map for the City of Kenosha.
Receive and file.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I have a first by Supervisor Rose and a second by Supervisor Kubicki. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? I'll see you tomorrow night.
7 p.m.
7 p.m., please.